Next topic. I got Eric Bieniemy, who was fired from UCLA last Thursday. Eric Bieniemy is a very notable, he's a very formidable offensive coach. He's coached under Andy Reid for the years that he's coached under Reid at Kansas City, and he was able to parlay that into a skill set that he never really got an opportunity to showcase his skill set at the pro level, because every pro job that came open, his name would come up, but in the long term, he would never get the job. Is that fair to say that Eric Bieniemy qualified for an NFL job when he was in the NFL? Where would we go with that?
You know, I'm starting to think that the insiders know much more than we do. And I'm saying this because you got a guy who's always been successful. He's been successful as a player and as a coach under different coaches. He's been a promising offensive coordinator and play caller. But I'm starting to think internally he might have some issues with an attitude problem, because that's the only way you get looked over. Somebody must putting the word out on him that he's hard to work with. Somebody said they can't deal with his personality issues. It's got to be something like that, because every time his name surfaces for something, it get heated like you just bring it out of the microwave, and all of a sudden it cools down and he don't get the job. And it's been surrounding for many years for him be like the top contender for a head coaching job. And then just next thing you know, he don't get it. So now he got fired from UCLA, and I think it was unjust. Me personally think it was unjust, because, he just got there. So I think they were looking for an scapegoat and they clipped him. It just seemed like he's having bad luck with maintaining an organization, even though he's been having success. So it's got to be some internal stuff going on with him, man, because the moment somebody looked to hire him, somebody probably put the word on, hey, man, this guy's bad news, and they back off of him. So that's the only thing I can see. Now, the only way you can combat stuff like that is get out of that circle. He can even go to an HB where he can't be blackballed, at least not right now. So just switch over to another form of football, man. And that's the only way I see he can kind of make a rebound, because once he get a head coaching job and he's successful, he can just build from there. But as long as he stays as an offensive coordinator, he's not running the show, he's going to be caught in that little web of what's happening with being blackballed. So I think he need to just switch on over to the HBCUs and go on over there and have a successful team, because I think there's openings over there for right now. I mean, if somebody's skating on a fence and his name pop up and he's interested in the job, I couldn't see them turning him down. So he needs to give that a shot. That's just my honest opinion about his ordeal.
Well, since you brought it up that so-called he's difficult to work with, Eric Bieniemy is a system guy. I've said this once, and I'll say it again. Eric Bieniemy is the type of person that when he comes within a system, his expectations are the things that he's preaching based on some of the formulas that he's actually teaching his players and teaching the offense, mainly the quarterback of any team. His expectations is he's got that play drafted up in his mind, and he wants that play to be followed through a certain way. When you have people that are system-oriented like that, it's very hard for them to delineate away from just making sense out of things if things don't go the exact way that he expected them to go, if that makes sense. And I hope it makes sense, because it might not make sense. I've worked around people like that in my career, where for example, if they say walk straight, they mean walk straight. Don't deviate away from walking straight. Just walk straight. And if you deviate away from it, even if it's successful, in the back of their mind, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And he ran into some issues with Patrick Mahomes with that same thing where they send the play in. Mahomes has the authority to change the play at the line based on what he sees on the defense, the alignments from the defense. And if it doesn't work, I used to see some of the times on the sideline where the enemy would walk over and talk to him and be shaking his head.
Yeah.
Look, man, we sent the play in. We sent the play into you.
Yeah.
We sent the play into you, and you chose to go and do it your way. And when you have a successful quarterback like Mahomes, you don't question that. You don't want to question Patrick Mahomes himself, because Patrick Mahomes have made so much out of nothing. Yeah. If he takes a play and he changes it into a play and it doesn't work, look, hey, man, the next play. We'll send it in again. If you see something different, change it again if you see fit to do so. But coaches like Bieniemy don't see that. So let me give you some stats here about UCLA. UCLA's offense ranked 32nd in 2023. Chip Kelly resigned in 2023. Chip Kelly was the head coach of UCLA, and he was brought in to change the culture at UCLA and to turn that into a prolific program where they're going, to championships and things of that sort. So they thought, Dan Guerrero, who was the athletic director at UCLA, hired Chip Kelly. I always had reservations about that, even though I don't follow UCLA's program. However, when they hired Chip Kelly had a system of his own. Chip Kelly, he was the type of guy that he ran things the way he wanted to run things. And a lot of people didn't see eye to eye with him. Even some of his assistant coaches didn't see eye to eye with that. So long story short, they at least ranked 32nd when Chip Kelly was there in his last year. 2024, they ranked 117th. According to these stats that I pulled from some very formidable websites, these are main media outlets, and basically if there are 117 out of 133 schools, Division I schools technically, how do you justify Eric Bieniemy staying another year? How would you reason that against them wanting to go in a different direction and bring in a new offensive coordinator? Because let me tell you something, Deshaun Foster, I think he could turn that program around. And maybe there was some things that maybe him and Eric Bieniemy didn't see eye to eye on, or they could have seen eye to eye on it, and the UCLA athletic director might have not have seen eye to eye, along with some of the people who support the program. What do you think about that?
Was that his first year? It was his first year,
This was his first year at UCLA, and they struggled. They went to Hawaii, of all places, and they barely beat the University of Hawaii, Manoa in Hawaii. You're telling me a program like UCLA should have mauled Hawaii, and Hawaii gave them a battle all the way up until the end, and they couldn't get anything going on offense. So why would you keep Bieniemy if they went from into 100 and he was a pro coach, offensive coordinator, which was coaching one of the best teams in professional football?
Well, you got to get more thorough than that. You got to dissect this thing a little bit more than that. When a guy's first year, you got a whole different system for these kids, man, for him for kids to abide by and to follow. A first-year program can very well go south. If you just look at a lot of championship coaches, their first year was like deplorable, man. And then, of course, they rebound quick. But the first year, you just can't even evaluate a man's capability 1 year in. You can have a hurt quarterback. You can have an offensive line, multiple offensive lines injured. It's just so many scenarios can happen to make you not be successful on offense, man. So I don't think you can take a whole bucket and just throw water on the guy because he didn't seem to be bringing you to the place where you want to be this year. I think to evaluate a guy thoroughly is to give him several years, at least several years. It's got to be at least 2. And then you start making predictions and making adjustments or making changes for him, because that 1 year thing, it shouldn't be like that, man. You can't just judge. I mean, under no circumstance will you just give a guy a year and can him. I don't care whether it was a freaking garbage man or what. You give him,
Mm-hmm.
1 year to turn a program around. That's just not a fair. I remember when Ray Rhodes was the coach of Green Bay.
I
They gave that
remember Ray
man
Rhodes.
1 year. They ran him off in 1 year, man. That was, it seemed racist all over the place. It just seemed so sad to give this man only one season to turn things
Right.
around. And I don't like that because it don't look fair to, the brothers, because it's happened to them more often than not. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my take on it, man. I think they should have given this guy another season to see what he'll do. And just to put a man out on the street with one season, I don't care whether he coached in the professional rankings at all. I don't care about that thing, because you still bring in a man for 1 year and he's bringing in a whole new system to these kids. So I don't like it, man. I don't.
But let's just digress back to what you said earlier, though. I'm going to just, go back to where you said there could have been some issues where some of the players might have not been responding to his style of coaching. I mean, think about that too. I don't really know what was going on over at UCLA because I wasn't inside of that program, but there has to be variables that lead up to separation to the point where they don't give a person a second year or a third year. I mean, because let me just say, the quarterback, Ethan Garbers, he basically, he wasn't performing well. That quarterback, and when Chip Kelly was there, he was doing fairly well, So, you got to think about...
You're talking about another system. Listen, when Chip Kelly was there, he worked under him for several years, and then all of a sudden, Bieniemy comes in there and changes the system. What you think? What you expect?
But Bieniemy probably, and listen, I don't know exactly what type of offense Bieniemy was running, but if Bieniemy was trying to bring a Kansas City style offense in where, it's very, very eccentric in the sense that you're looking at the tight end being the principal target as opposed to outside receivers, and being able to mix that up and trying to get college players to see that you might have to dumb certain things down versus having to bring a very complicated system to the college level and expect for 16 or 17-year-old kids.
That could be very true.
That could be more, right?
Yeah, it could be true.
And that has happened in the past where you've had coaches come from the college level and they bring in these very highly advanced offenses where it's a book this thick, where you got a 17-year-old trying to learn all of this within a short period of time. And this 17-year-old or 14-year-old has to turn around and go to class.
Yeah.
He ain't only learning the book. He's not only learning the playbook, but he's got to go to school in the daytime. So you think about, you have to have some balance. You have to have a delicate balance where you can dumb some things down. And I don't mean the players are dumb. I'm just saying you have to narrow things down where it makes sense to them. Some of the codes, some of the things that you're sending in, they have to understand that for all of them to be able to take that and be able to work with that.
And what you're saying, that I can agree but disagree, because we're still talking about, you can call it whatever you want, they're men, young adults.
They are young men. Yeah. I agree with that.
But
I agree.
That way of coaching probably ain't catching on with them. And of course, too, maybe the head coach started to say, I agree with the kids. I don't think this offense is going to work. It's too advanced for these kids. They got too much going on. And he refused to change. That's a good way to separate from offensive coordinator. Because that's pretty much all he knows. He's going to run that style, and he's not bending, and he's not flexing. He's not doing anything. He's going to keep the way he know how to do things. And that can short order him out of the door for sure.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. We'll see.
He's a system guy, so it's hard to get system guys to change. I'm just telling you from my experience and watching people like that. So anyway.
You've reached the end of another episode of the DC Stewart Sports Talk podcast. Be sure to connect with us at Facebook and Twitter.com. Your voice is important, so head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Catch our next episode.